I never imagined that in just one day, everything I had built, everything I loved, could vanish in the blink of an eye. One morning, I woke up like any other, full of hope and plans. But by nightfall, nothing would feel the same again. Life had always felt simple yet stable. I had a small apartment in the city, a steady job that gave me security, and a family that loved me. Friends, though few, were close enough to count on. My mornings were predictable. Sunlight spilling through my curtains, the smell of coffee brewing in the kitchen, and a few quiet moments by the window planning my day. Life was ordinary, but it was safe, and that safety gave me comfort. That morning, I woke up slightly earlier than usual. The city outside was slowly coming alive, the distant hum of traffic mixing with the gentle songs of birds. I brewed my coffee, the warm aroma filling the small apartment, and checked my phone. Good morning messages from friends popped up, and I replied with a smile. Everything felt perfectly normal. I couldn't have guessed that the ordinary calm of that morning was the last I would ever know. As I went about my routine, I noticed small things, subtle signals I didn't pay much attention to at the time. A missed call from an unknown number, an email from work with a subject line that seemed ordinary, yet carried a slight tension. I shrugged them off, convincing myself they were nothing. It's probably just spam or a minor technical glitch, I thought. But a tiny seed of unease had already taken root. I sipped my coffee, staring out at the city, and smiled at a neighbor passing by. Even these small interactions, the mundane comfort of a normal day, felt grounding. Life seemed predictable, safe, almost blissfully unremarkable. And yet, beneath the surface, the world was already shifting. I didn't know it yet, but the storm was quietly gathering on the horizon. The calm before the storm, as they say, is the most deceptive. That morning, every simple routine scrolling through messages, sipping coffee, laughing at a silly text, was a final fragment of a life that was about to be tested in ways I could never have imagined. The universe, silent and patient, was preparing to teach me the harshest lesson I would ever face. I thought I knew what life was, until the day everything I held dear slipped through my fingers. And so began a day that would challenge every certainty I had ever held. A day that would show me the fragility of normalcy, the unexpected twists of fate, and the resilience hidden within the human spirit. Little did I know, by nightfall, I would be facing the reality of losing everything, and nothing in my life would ever be the same again. That morning felt ordinary, yet something in the air whispered that nothing would remain the same. I woke up to sunlight spilling through the curtains, the city slowly stirring outside my window. The distant hum of traffic mingled with birdsong, creating a strange calm. I brewed my coffee, the aroma warming the apartment, and checked my phone. A few good morning messages from friends popped up, and I replied with a smile. Life felt predictable, safe, almost comforting. I moved through my morning routine, checking emails and planning errands. Even my neighbor's casual greeting as he left for work brought a fleeting sense of normalcy. I laughed at a silly text from my sibling, oblivious to the storm quietly forming beyond the edges of this ordinary day. Then the first subtle warning appeared, a missed call from an unknown number. I ignored it, thinking it was spam. Moments later, a notification from my bank showed a failed transaction, a minor amount. My chest tightened slightly, but I brushed it off. By mid-morning, my phone buzzed again. An email from work, marked urgent. The subject line seemed ordinary, but as I read the contents, my stomach sank. Errors in accounts, discrepancies flagged, urgent notices about projects I thought were secure. My heart raced, yet I tried to convince myself it was just a technical glitch. I told myself it was nothing. But deep down, a seed of unease had already taken root. Stepping out for a short walk, I tried to clear my mind. The city was alive. Kids heading to school, street vendors arranging stalls, people rushing to catch buses. Everything seemed normal. Yet each small warning, the missed call, the bank alert, the urgent email started to feel connected, like subtle signals warning me that my ordinary life was about to shatter. Back in the apartment, another notification popped up, an unexpected bill. Small, seemingly insignificant, but together with the others, it began to feel like a pattern. Each tiny event chipped away at the security I had always taken for granted. Even my neighbor noticed. "You okay?" he asked casually. "You seem a bit off today." I forced a smile. "Yeah, just an early morning feeling," I replied. But inside, anxiety was growing, spreading like a shadow across the edges of my mind. Every ordinary routine, sipping coffee, scrolling through messages, exchanging jokes, was now overshadowed by an unspoken tension. The calm I felt that morning was fragile, temporary, deceptive. The universe, patient and silent, was setting the stage for a day that would change my life forever. Little did I know, by the end of the day, everything I held dear would be gone, and my world, as I knew it, would cease to exist. The morning passed in this strange balance, normality on the surface, tension building underneath. By the time lunch approached, I couldn't shake the feeling that the calm was only temporary. Something was coming, something unavoidable, something that would force me to confront the fragility of life itself. It all happened in a matter of minutes, yet the impact would last a lifetime. The phone rang just as I was finishing my lunch. I didn't recognize the number, but something compelled me to answer. A calm, official voice on the other end said words I wasn't prepared for. "I'm afraid there's been a serious issue with your account. We need you to come in immediately." My stomach dropped. I tried to rationalize it, telling myself it must be a mistake. But deep inside, a sinking feeling began to grow. I gathered my things, heart racing, hands slightly trembling. I could feel the first cracks in my carefully maintained sense of security. Arriving at the office, I was met with a scene I could never have imagined. Papers scattered, colleagues whispering, faces pale with tension. My manager approached, her expression grave. "We've run into a critical problem with the company's accounts," she said quietly. "You need to look into this immediately." Everything felt surreal. I could hardly process her words. Minutes ago, life had been ordinary emails, coffee, laughter, but now a wave of panic and disbelief washed over me. My mind raced. How could this happen? What did I do wrong? The problem escalated faster than I could react. Errors I had no control over began multiplying, numbers spiraling out of balance, notifications pinging ceaselessly. My heart pounded, and a cold sweat formed on my brow. My coworkers looked at me with sympathy, but sympathy did little to stop the internal chaos consuming me. I realized in that moment that nothing in life is truly guaranteed. Security, stability, even the small joys we take for granted, all of it can vanish in an instant. By the afternoon, the first tangible loss hit. A notice arrived. My apartment, my safe haven, was facing eviction due to a technical error in payments I had assumed were handled. I stared at the letter in disbelief. My home, the place I had called my own, suddenly felt uncertain. Fear gripped me in a way I had never known. I tried to reach out for help, calling my family, explaining the situation. Their voices were calm, but their concern only made the weight of reality heavier. Friends who I had relied on were out of town, unavailable. For the first time, I felt truly alone. In a single morning, my world had begun to crumble. And with each passing hour, the ground beneath me shook more violently. The first blow wasn't just financial. It was emotional. Every sense of safety I had clung to for years was evaporating. Every plan, every routine, every ounce of normalcy was slipping through my fingers. I could feel the storm of the day gathering, and there was no way to escape it. By evening, the effects were undeniable. Calls from banks, notices from work, reminders of unpaid bills, all converging to show me a life that was unraveling faster than I could manage. I sat in my apartment, staring blankly at the walls that had once felt so safe. The room felt smaller, suffocating, as if the air itself had grown heavy with the weight of loss. It was the first blow, the beginning of a day that would strip away everything I thought I had. And I knew deep down that nothing would ever be the same again. Once the first blow hit, everything spiraled out of control. There was no stopping it, no turning back. The hours that followed were a blur. Every notification, every call, every small reminder of responsibility felt like a hammer striking my already fragile world. Problems that I thought were minor multiplied at an alarming rate. Errors in accounts, unpaid bills, and urgent notices came crashing in, each one amplifying the sense of impending doom. My apartment, once a safe haven, now felt like a fragile shell that could collapse at any moment. Colleagues approached me with sympathetic looks, but their words felt hollow. Even their concern, well intentioned, couldn't stop the avalanche of chaos. I felt powerless, trapped in a storm that was growing faster than I could react. The office itself seemed to mirror the turmoil inside me, desks cluttered, papers scattered, phones ringing incessantly, everyone on edge. I had always believed that life had a rhythm, a balance. That morning proved how wrong I was. By mid-afternoon, the situation worsened. A call from the bank confirmed that a major transaction had failed, one that would have covered several essential expenses. My attempts to fix it were futile. Every step seemed to lead to another roadblock. Frustration turned to panic, and panic turned to despair. Home was no refuge either. Notices from landlords, utility companies, and creditors filled my inbox. Every message reminded me of how quickly stability could vanish. The apartment that had once felt safe now felt like a prison, each wall closing in as reality's weight pressed down. I tried to reach out to friends and family, but everyone was busy, distant, or unable to help. Isolation became tangible. In that moment, I realized how alone one could feel, even in a world full of people. I had never known fear like this, raw and relentless. Small mistakes that I had made over the years, missed payments, overlooked deadlines, ignored emails, suddenly became magnified. They were no longer minor. They were building blocks of a life unraveling before me. Each error seemed to mock me, a reminder that control is often an illusion. Even relationships began to feel strained. Conversations that were once light-hearted now carried tension. My family, though supportive, could not shield me from the reality crashing down. Friends offered words of comfort, but the physical and emotional distance made their support feel insufficient. The more I tried to hold on, the faster everything slipped away. Chaos was not just around me, it had taken residence inside me. By late afternoon, exhaustion set in. My mind raced, heart pounding with adrenaline and dread. Every attempt to regain control only led to more chaos. Notifications piled up. Calls went unanswered. Emails demanded urgent action I couldn't perform. My apartment, my finances, even my mental stability felt like fragile glass about to shatter. In those hours, I began to see the fragility of life structure. All the routines, all the small certainties I had clung to, they were illusions, temporary shelters against an unpredictable world. Chaos was relentless, consuming every predictable element of my life, leaving behind uncertainty and fear. By the time evening approached, the day had already proven its power. The first blow had been severe, but the chaos that followed was merciless. I could feel my life unraveling thread by thread. I sat in my apartment, staring at the walls that had once felt comforting, now shadows of anxiety creeping across every corner. The sounds of the city outside, the distant traffic, the hum of life felt alien, a world moving normally while mine had descended into disorder. Nothing in that day was ordinary anymore. Every familiar detail had transformed into a reminder of loss, instability, and fear. Chaos had taken hold, and it would not let go. By the time night fell, I was a shadow of the person I had been that morning. Everything familiar, everything comforting, had been stripped away. The evening arrived, heavy and unrelenting. The chaos that had consumed the day now left me numb, sitting in a silent apartment that felt colder than ever. Every corner seemed to echo the losses I had endured. The eviction notice on the table glared at me like a reminder of failure. The missed payments, the failed transactions, the emails, each one a dagger, carving away at my sense of self. I tried to comprehend it all, but my mind refused to cooperate. Thoughts raced uncontrollably. How did it get this far? What did I miss? What could I have done differently? My chest ached, my hands trembled, and tears burned my eyes. The room that had once felt like a sanctuary now felt like a prison, trapping me in despair. I had always thought I was prepared for life's challenges, but nothing could have readied me for this. Nothing. The emotional weight was unbearable. Memories of better days, family dinners, laughter with friends, the simple pleasure of a quiet morning haunted me. They were stark contrasts to the devastation surrounding me now. Every memory became a painful reminder of what I had lost, and every lost moment deepened the void inside. I attempted to reach out for help, calling my closest friends. Their voices were warm and empathetic, but the distance, both physical and emotional, made their support feel distant. Even my family, though loving, could not shield me from the crushing reality of the day. Isolation enveloped me like a thick fog. Financial stress was only part of the story. The real blow was internal, the collapse of confidence, the questioning of every decision, the feeling that my entire life had been a fragile illusion. I stared at my reflection in the window, seeing a person I barely recognized, weary, defeated, and uncertain how to move forward. It was in that mirror that I truly saw the cost of losing everything. Not just material possessions, but the sense of security, the belief in normalcy, and even the trust in myself. As the night deepened, the apartment became suffocating. Silence pressed in, amplifying every worry, every fear, every regret. I paced, unable to sleep, unable to eat, consumed by the relentless storm of my thoughts. My mind kept returning to what had gone wrong, each thought feeding despair. Even the simplest tasks, answering calls, checking emails, opening letters, became monumental. Every interaction felt like a test. I was destined to fail. Friends and family reassured me, but no words could penetrate the weight pressing on my chest. I was alone in a world that seemed to have turned against me. Rock bottom isn't a single moment, it's the accumulation of failures, losses, and fears, until you are certain you cannot fall any further. That night, I had reached it. I finally sank to the floor, exhausted in body and spirit, staring at the ceiling. The day had taken everything I thought I had under control. Life, as I knew it, had ended. The stability, the security, the comfort, all gone. And yet, somewhere deep inside, a small flicker of awareness remained that even in the darkest moments, the human spirit has the potential to endure. It was raw, it was painful, and it was isolating. But as I sat in the dim light of my apartment, tears streaming, I began to realize one truth. Hitting rock bottom, though unbearable, was the first step toward understanding the depth of resilience I would need to rebuild. Everything I had known was gone. But even in that emptiness, a faint spark of hope refused to die. After hitting rock bottom, I realized that sitting in despair wouldn't bring anything back. If I wanted to survive, I had to act. The morning after the collapse was quiet, almost eerily so. The chaos of the previous day still lingered, like a shadow clinging to every corner of my apartment. Yet, deep down, I knew that inaction would only worsen the spiral. Slowly, I forced myself out of bed, every movement heavy, weighed down by exhaustion and fear. I started by prioritizing the most urgent problems, financial matters, eviction notices, pending work tasks. Each step felt like climbing a mountain, every small victory requiring immense effort. I called banks, contacted creditors, and reviewed emails, trying to find a way to stabilize what had been destabilized overnight. The process was grueling. Every phone call, every conversation reminded me of how fragile life can be, how quickly security can vanish. It felt like I was swimming against a storm, each attempt met with another wave of challenges. But surrender was not an option. Family support became crucial. I reached out, explaining my situation, and their reassurance offered some relief. My sibling offered to help with bills temporarily. My parents provided advice and encouragement. Their presence reminded me that even in isolation, human connection can anchor you. Yet, help was partial. I realized that ultimately, I had to take responsibility for rebuilding my life, piece by piece. Work remained another battlefield. Errors needed correction, deadlines had to be met, and trust had to be restored. Each task was a reminder of the fragility of the life I once took for granted. Yet, with each completed action, however small, I felt a spark of agency, a flicker of control returning to my hands. Survival wasn't just about solving problems. It was about proving to myself that I could endure, that I could rise even when the world seemed intent on crushing me. The struggle extended beyond finances and work. The emotional toll was equally challenging. I had to confront my fear, frustration, and guilt daily. Each morning, I forced myself to face reality instead of hiding from it. Meditation, journaling, even small walks outside became lifelines, allowing me to process the whirlwind of emotions inside me. Some days were harder than others. Setbacks came unexpectedly, a rejected request, a delayed payment, a call that brought more bad news. Each setback threatened to undo the progress I had made. But slowly, step by step, I began to see the pattern. Resilience isn't built in comfort, but forged in struggle. I learned to accept that progress is never linear. Some days you climb, some days you fall, but the act of continuing is what defines survival. Friends also played a surprising role. Though distant during the initial chaos, some returned with practical help, guidance, contacts, and advice. Their presence reminded me that even when the world feels empty, people can step in when needed. The importance of community, even in small doses, became clear. By the end of the first week, minor victories accumulated. A few bills were cleared, work errors corrected, communication lines reopened. The chaos hadn't vanished, but the storm no longer seemed insurmountable. I began to feel the first real sense of agency since the day everything fell apart. Fighting for survival wasn't glamorous. It was exhausting, painful, and sometimes humiliating. But it was necessary. And each small victory reminded me that I was still capable, still alive, still fighting. The struggle also reshaped my perspective. Before, I had taken stability for granted, assuming life would remain predictable. Now, every action carried weight, every decision mattered. Survival wasn't just physical or financial, it was emotional, mental, and spiritual. I had to rebuild every layer of my life, and that awareness became both a burden and a motivation. Even amid progress, doubt lingered. Could I fully recover? Would life ever feel secure again? Each day brought uncertainty, yet I persisted. Small routines, checking finances, following up on work, reaching out to support networks became rituals of survival. They grounded me, gave structure, and slowly replaced despair with determination. Survival taught me humility, patience, and persistence. It revealed strengths I didn't know I had and weaknesses I had to confront. Most importantly, it showed me that even after losing everything, the fight to rebuild is always worth it. By the end of the first month, I wasn't fully healed, but I was moving forward. The chaos of the past had shaped a path for growth. Every struggle, every sleepless night, every pang of fear became a stepping stone toward reclaiming control over my life. The hardest part of losing everything is realizing that the only way forward is through yourself. Weeks of struggle, exhaustion, and small victories had begun to teach me something profound. Survival alone wasn't enough. I needed a vision, a reason to rebuild, a purpose that went beyond just paying bills and correcting mistakes. That realization hit me one quiet evening as I sat by the window, staring at the city lights flickering in the distance. For the first time since the collapse, I allowed myself to reflect not on the losses, but on the lessons. The day I lost everything had been brutal, but it had also shown me who I truly was. Strength, resilience, patience, and adaptability, qualities I had never fully acknowledged were now undeniable. I realized that losing everything didn't make me weak. It revealed a strength I didn't know I had. I began to write down my thoughts, documenting every mistake, every loss, every small triumph. The act of writing became a mirror to my own growth, and through it, I started to see a path forward. Problems that once seemed insurmountable now appeared as challenges I could methodically tackle. The chaos that had consumed me no longer felt like a threat, it felt like a teacher. One morning, a breakthrough came unexpectedly. A conversation with a colleague sparked an idea to reorganize my finances and approach work in a new way. I realized that I could transform the failures into stepping stones, using the experience to prevent future disasters. Planning, prioritization, and proactive action became tools not just for survival, but for reclaiming control over my life. The turning point wasn't dramatic or sudden. It was quiet, subtle, and deeply personal. It was a choice to stop being a victim and start being an architect of my own future. I also reevaluated my relationships. Some friendships faded, unable to withstand the pressure, while others strengthened, revealing who truly mattered. Family support became even more meaningful, and I learned the value of trust, communication, and mutual effort. As I implemented small changes, organizing finances, addressing work errors, setting daily goals, I noticed a shift within myself. Confidence began to return, not as arrogance, but as quiet assurance. I wasn't fully healed, nor was life fully restored, but I had regained something far more valuable, a sense of agency. I understood that turning points are not about instant fixes. They are about moments of clarity, decisions to act, and the courage to keep moving forward, even when the path is uncertain. The city outside remained constant, indifferent to my struggles, yet it felt different to me. Every light, every sound, every rhythm now reminded me of the fragility and beauty of life. Loss had stripped me bare, but in that emptiness, I found focus. I no longer feared mistakes as intensely because I knew that recovery was possible with effort, persistence, and resilience. This realization also brought hope. I started setting long-term plans that stretched beyond immediate survival. I envisioned stability, growth, and even opportunities to help others who might face similar hardships. The day I had lost everything became the foundation for a new life, one built intentionally rather than taken for granted. Sometimes, life has to break you down completely before you can rise stronger than ever. My turning point was understanding that strength comes from the struggle itself. By the end of this period, I wasn't fully restored, but the fog of despair had lifted enough to see a horizon. Each step forward, each problem solved, each emotional hurdle crossed became a testament to human resilience. I had found a purpose in rebuilding, and that purpose was stronger than any fear or loss. Recovery doesn't happen overnight. It's a series of deliberate actions, small wins, and unwavering determination. After the turning point, I realized that hope alone wasn't enough. I needed a structured plan, a roadmap to rebuild my life piece by piece. The first step was financial stability. I meticulously reviewed every expense, every debt, every overdue payment. I contacted creditors and negotiated extensions, created a strict budget, and set up automatic payments to prevent further errors. Each small action was a victory, each call an adjustment, restoring a fragment of control I had lost. Control, I realized, isn't something you regain all at once. It's earned slowly, one decision at a time. Next, I turned my attention to professional responsibilities. The errors at work had shaken my confidence, but they also offered a chance for growth. I created a detailed action plan, prioritized tasks, and communicated transparently with colleagues and superiors. This transparency not only restored trust, but also allowed me to rebuild relationships that had been strained under pressure. Physical and mental health became a priority too. I realized that no amount of planning or work could succeed if my mind and body were depleted. Daily walks, mindfulness exercises, and structured sleep schedules became part of my routine. Journaling helped me process emotions and track progress. Slowly, I began to feel stronger, more grounded, and capable of facing challenges without being overwhelmed. Recovery isn't just about fixing what's broken. It's about becoming stronger, wiser, and more resilient in the process. I also focused on support networks. Friends, family, mentors, each played a vital role in providing advice, encouragement, and practical assistance. I learned the importance of asking for help and accepting it without shame. Isolation had been my enemy during the collapse. Now, connection became a source of strength. Education and skill building became another essential step. I invested time in learning new financial management strategies, productivity techniques, and professional skills. This not only prevented future mistakes, but also restored a sense of competence and confidence I had feared lost. Every small improvement, every skill learned, every routine implemented was a brick in the foundation of my new life. I documented progress meticulously. Each small victory, a bill paid on time, an email resolved, a conversation with family or friends, was a reminder that I was moving forward. The sense of accomplishment, even from minor successes, became a powerful motivator to continue pushing forward. Reflection became a daily practice. I revisited the losses, the chaos, and the despair, not to dwell on them, but to extract lessons. What mistakes had I made? What systems failed? How could I prevent similar situations in the future? Each reflection added clarity, guiding my actions and preventing stagnation. Recovery is a dance between reflection and action. Learn from the past, but don't get trapped in it. Move forward deliberately, every step with purpose. By the end of the second month, tangible progress was visible. The apartment was secure, finances stabilized, and work responsibilities were manageable again. Emotionally, I felt lighter, more capable, and increasingly optimistic. I had learned that rebuilding isn't about rushing, it's about consistency, persistence, and faith in your ability to endure. I also began to set long-term goals. Stability was no longer enough. I wanted growth, personal development, and the ability to help others in similar situations. These goals gave me a new sense of purpose, transforming the trauma of loss into motivation for a better future. Recovery isn't a destination, it's a journey. Each step, each choice, each effort compounds over time, slowly transforming despair into resilience and weakness into strength. By consistently taking these deliberate steps, I began to reclaim not just my life, but my confidence and independence. The lessons of chaos and loss remained, but they became tools, reminders that even in the darkest times, deliberate action and resilience could rebuild what had been lost. The day I lost everything taught me that the path forward isn't always clear, but with patience, effort, and focus, a new life is possible, stronger, and more meaningful than before. Sometimes, losing everything is the only way to truly find yourself. After months of struggle, small victories, and deliberate effort, I finally began to pause and reflect. The chaos, despair, and pain I had endured were no longer just traumatic events. They had become lessons. Every mistake, every setback, every sleepless night had taught me something invaluable about life, resilience, and the human spirit. The first lesson was humility. I had always believed I was in control, that my routines, my planning, and my stability were guarantees. Losing everything shattered that illusion. I realized that life is unpredictable, fragile, and often beyond our control. But in that unpredictability, there is opportunity, the chance to grow, adapt, and rebuild. Humility isn't weakness. It's the acknowledgement that life can change in an instant, and that we must be prepared to adapt. The second lesson was resilience. The journey back from rock bottom was neither easy nor quick. It required consistent effort, emotional strength, and the courage to keep moving even when fear and doubt were overwhelming. Every small victory reinforced the idea that humans are capable of enduring far more than we often imagine. Connection became another key lesson. During the darkest moments, family, friends, and mentors reminded me that isolation amplifies despair. Even minimal support, an encouraging word, a helpful call, a shared resource can make a profound difference. True resilience is not built alone. It is strengthened through relationships, trust, and collaboration. Resilience is not just personal, it's social. The people around us can lift us when we cannot lift ourselves. I also learned the power of reflection and intentional action. After surviving the chaos, I realized that reacting impulsively only worsened problems. Deliberate planning, daily routines, and proactive decision-making became essential. Recovery is not a matter of luck. It is the product of conscious choices, repeated consistently over time. The emotional lesson was perhaps the deepest. Loss teaches gratitude. After losing almost everything, I learned to appreciate the small things: a stable roof, a completed task, a supportive conversation. Life's simplest elements, which we often overlook, suddenly hold immense value. Gratitude became a daily practice, reminding me that even in hardship, there is something to hold on to. Gratitude transforms perspective. It shifts focus from what is lost to what remains, and from despair to possibility. Finally, I discovered the importance of purpose. Survival was just the beginning. Rebuilding required direction. Setting goals, envisioning growth, and taking steps toward long-term stability and personal development gave meaning to the struggle. It was no longer about merely recovering. It was about building a stronger, wiser, and more intentional life. Purpose is the compass that guides us through chaos. Without it, even recovery can feel hollow. As I reflect on that day when everything fell apart, I see it not just as a moment of loss, but as a turning point, a catalyst for growth. The pain was real, the fear was tangible, but the wisdom gained is invaluable. Life taught me that even in the darkest hours, there is potential for renewal, growth, and profound understanding. The day I lost everything became the day I truly found myself. And that, more than anything else, is a gift I never expected. Losing everything was the hardest lesson of my life, but it also became the most valuable. As I sit today, months after the storm, I can finally breathe and reflect. Life isn't perfect, and challenges still come, but the fear that once paralyzed me has transformed into strength. I learned that the foundation of resilience is not built on stability or certainty. It is built on the ability to rise, adapt, and continue moving forward, no matter how harsh the circumstances. The journey from chaos to recovery taught me that loss, while devastating, is not the end. It is a turning point, a catalyst that exposes weaknesses, tests character, and reveals hidden strengths. Every obstacle I faced, every sleepless night, and every tear shed became a stepping stone toward a stronger, wiser version of myself. Hope is not passive. It is earned through action, perseverance, and the courage to face the unknown. Looking back, I understand that my story is not unique. Many people face moments when life seems to crumble, but the difference lies in how we respond. Accepting reality, taking deliberate steps to rebuild, seeking support, and maintaining focus on purpose and growth can transform despair into empowerment. I rebuilt not only my finances and career, but also my mindset. I learned to value what truly matters: relationships, self-awareness, gratitude, and resilience. The trivial stresses of everyday life now feel minor in comparison to the lessons learned through hardship. Recovery is not a straight line. There are setbacks, doubts, and moments of fear, but every step forward counts, and every challenge overcome strengthens your resolve. Today, I move forward with intention. Each decision I make, each action I take, carries the wisdom of past mistakes and the strength forged through adversity. I understand that life is unpredictable and stability is never guaranteed, but the ability to endure and rebuild is a choice I will always carry. As the sun rises each morning, I remind myself of the day I lost everything, not to dwell on the pain, but to honor the resilience it awakened within me. Life is fragile, yes, but it is also full of opportunities to grow, to rise, and to transform setbacks into stepping stones for a brighter future. The day I lost everything became the day I learned what I am truly capable of. And that knowledge is far more valuable than anything I could have held in my hands. In the end, loss taught me hope. It taught me strength. It taught me that even when everything falls apart, the human spirit has the power to rebuild, to adapt, and to find meaning in the chaos. My story is a reminder that no matter how deep the despair, a new beginning is always possible if you are willing to fight for it, step by step. You may lose everything, but if you hold on to courage, determination, and hope, you can rise again, and sometimes even stronger than before.